Other new release, which was released on streaming service on Christmas Day, on Disney Plus, is Pixar's Soul, which is a quirky film about a middle school music teacher called Joe Gardner, voiced by Jamie Foxx, who is basically, average Joe stuck in a rut, has a passion for jazz and music, but the only, by teaching middle school, and most of them are not very good. He plays, his dream is to play with Dorothea Williams, who's, I don't know if they're a real person in real life, but they're a jazz musician, and he finally gets a chance and impresses her, and then falls down a manhole and dies, and then goes to basically, I guess, some form of purgatory, the great beyond, the great before, and eventually finds a soul called 22, who every soul has to find their purpose before they can get an Earth pass and essentially be born. And 22 has not found their spark yet, and then goes on a journey to find, trying to explore what number 22's spark might be. So, I mean, I liked this film.
Yeah.
On lots of different levels.
Yeah.
But for the first 20 minutes or so, I was like, where the hell is this film going? Because you're like, you're watching a story about a jazz musician, and then he dies, and I was like, oh, okay. I mean, I knew that was sort of the plot of it anyway, but then when they started going to the great beyond and the great before, and like the characters that like Richard Ayoade voices, the Jerrys,
I thought that was him.
They look like children's drawings, which I think is probably, the point.
That's
but
yeah.
I was watching it, I was like, this did not go in the direction I thought it would. I thought it might be something about like coming to terms with death and exploring death, but not in the way of exploring life, which is essentially what it does. So yeah, I was watching it, and there were some really funny moments, particularly when he goes into the body of the cat, and then he's like ranting and raving, and then all other people can hear is just meowing. And there's some nice scenes like the barbershop scene, some touching moments. But yeah, it's such a, I don't know. I was just watching it. I was like, I would not have said that this was the way a Pixar film would go. But I did really enjoy it. But it was just one of those like very, very strange films.
I agree with you, to be fair. After 15, 20 minutes, I was kind of like, am I going to like this? And by the end of it, I did really enjoy it. But my key takeaway of it was, after I had a sleep and thought about it, obviously Pixar are kind of like known for making films made for children, but also can be watched by adults. So I was watching this film thinking like, I feel like the message of this film is quite deep. And I'm wondering, if you're a child watching this, will you understand what the hell's going on and the meaning of the film? I don't think you would. I don't know that I mind, because I'm not a child, I'm an adult. But, I don't know, I just think, because normally that's the staple, I feel like this one is a lot more mature than, in terms of themes, than we're used to from Pixar.
Yeah, I would agree. It's a lot deeper, which they seem to have gone to in the last kind of few years. Obviously you had like Inside Out, which was basically about like feelings. That was a bit more palatable, I think, for a younger audience, but you also had like Coco was about death.
Yep.
Even like, in a way, Finding Dory is a bit kind of, about identity and finding home and stuff. It's not your Toy Stories and Monsters Inc., is it? They've certainly seemed to have, I don't know, matured a bit. Not matured, that's the wrong phrase, but
I know what you mean.
They're exploring a bit more kind of complex themes, yeah. I think I agree with you. I don't think someone, less than an adult. Even someone who's in their like teens would probably struggle to sort of comprehend what actually, it is a thinker. You don't just come out of it being like, oh yeah, that's what it was about. You're sort of like, oh, okay, so it's about life and sometimes the spark to life is just life itself rather than, a particular passion. So, yeah, I mean, an ambitious film, beautiful film in the way in terms of like the colours and the way that, in like the Great Before, you've got kind of like the soft kind of squishy kind of bouncy balls that represent the souls and like we said, the kind of childish looking drawings. So that is very much like how maybe a child would depict that. Even the souls themselves being quite like, ball-like kind of, it's like if someone dies and you think their soul, that's quite a nice way of, portraying that. But there was also some like pretty kind of dark bits, like the Lost Souls. That was like something out of a Tim Burton sort of horror film,
I enjoyed that bit though. I did enjoy that bit.
Yeah.
I like the way how they connected it to the guy who was working for, like I said, he was like a hedge fund account manager or something like that. Who's obviously like when you lose yourself in something and basically you forget like your reason for living and you're just focused on this one thing, that obsession clouds your soul. And to be honest, I thought that was going to happen to Joe because I thought this guy was so obsessed with jazz and playing with Dorothea. I thought his soul was going to become like clouded or whatever. Obviously, it didn't. But yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know if not that I would have preferred that, but I thought this film would be more about jazz than it is. I mean, there are a few scenes of jazz, but it's very much like bookends the film.
Yeah.
And I thought they would play more on the fact that his mum is a bit like, you shouldn't pursue this dream. It was, it doesn't pay the bills, and there was like hints that his father was a musician, but she said that this tailor paid the bills rather than him. I felt like that in itself was a story that I would have seen.
I feel like it could have, they could have just like, obviously, is what it is, but they could have maybe, how Coco, like, it sprinkles a couple songs here and there, like a Latin, like upbeat songs. Maybe you could have sprinkled a couple jazz songs in here and there, in the in-between of maybe trying to convince, 22, either that music is her spark or just trying to help her find her spark. Maybe could have put some music in there, just like a little song saying, oh, what if this is your passion? What if this is your passion? Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not as if Jamie Foxx can't sing.
Yeah, exactly. That's wasted opportunity.
I feel like they sort of wasted him anyway. I mean, I saw something you retweeted, I think it was you retweeted it, about a tendency for animated films featuring African Americans to kind of disembody their voice in a sense.
Yeah.
Like, it either goes into another body or another character. And for large parts of this film, you get Tina Fey voicing Joe.
Yeah.
And he makes a point in the film of saying, oh, you sound like a middle-aged white woman. So, to one point, you're like, yeah, this is a film, where the protagonist is an African-American who likes jazz. You're like, okay, great. That is a good representation, important, Pixar. And then for half the film, it's voiced by Tina Fey.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, it is weird. There is a problem with that, I think, but I don't know. It was a weird trend that seems to be popping up in these films. But hopefully they can move past it. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a...
And I feel like him being in the cat was it some, I don't know if it was something that necessarily was needed. I don't know. So obviously it was tied into the story in that, Tina Fey became him and got to live life, whatever. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like maybe they could have chosen a different avenue.
What I thought was going to happen is that they both ended up in Joe's body. And
that's what I thought as well.
They would have to like fight. over like who was the more dominant personality or something.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
And do we ever actually see 22 as a person?
No, and that's something that it not annoyed me, but I was like, I kind of wanted to see where she ended up. But obviously she would have been a baby, I assume anyway. But I was thinking maybe they could have fast forward 5 years and Joe met this Lisa woman and maybe Tina Fey turned out to be Joe's daughter or something like that. I don't know. But obviously that didn't happen. So.
Yeah. It was weird because I was watching it and I was like, would this have worked in the cinema? And I was like, I don't know. To me, it wasn't like a massively cinematic film. I don't know if that's because I watched it, on TV rather than first of all in the cinema. But I don't know. It was quite like there was magical elements to it, but I don't know. It wasn't quite for me on the same scale as like Coco.
Yeah. I think with Coco as well, obviously because there is like magical elements to it, because there's music in it, it does lend itself to being a more like a grand production that you could watch on a big screen, because like obviously all the sounds coming from the speakers and the music, like it's easier to engulf you in what's going on in that world, in that story. And obviously this takes a much more realistic approach in terms of everyone's just speaking in their normal voices, and there's not really, obviously apart from there being souls, there's no like magical elements to it, so it's a bit more grounded, I think.
Yeah.
The whole soul bit, apart from jumping out of the soul, apart from that, it's pretty grounded. Like these are normal people, like normal lives.
If it was released in cinemas, do you think it would make loads of money, or do you think people would be a bit like, is this for kids? Is this
in this in a non-COVID world?
Yeah, in a non-COVID. If it was released, last year, everyone could go and see it. But do you think it has the broad appeal that most other Pixar films have?
I feel like this is a film that would have done well because of two things. So one of them being that the lead character was black, and black people tend to show out when the lead character of the film is black. So, for example, Black Panther, Get Out, etc. And also, I think this film would have done well from word of mouth, because like adults with kids would have seen this film. They would have been like, oh, okay, I'll quite enjoy this. And they would go and tell their friends who have kids, oh, you should go and see this film. Like, we can actually watch it, kind of thing. And I think that would have helped to spread, information that adults won't be bored out of their minds whilst their kids are enjoying this film.
Well, it's a big improvement on Onward.
I didn't mind Onward, but yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
I agree. But I think there's elements of this film that I don't know if you want to get into or not, but that I do really enjoy in terms of like, him by the end of the film. Obviously the obsession is, I need to do this thing because this is what I was born to do. This is what I was meant to do. This is my fate. It turns out that's actually just something that you really like, and it's not your purpose for living. Your purpose of life is to just live. And a lot of people get very consumed into, I have to do this, I have to be this, I have to do this by this time, and you forget to just chill the fuck out, lick a lollipop, eat some pizza, you know what I mean? Watch the fucking the earwig thingies fall down from the trees. You know what I mean? Sometimes you just have to, for lack of a better phrase, stop and smell the roses. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's true.
I like that message a lot.
Yeah, I think that certainly with social media and stuff, like you see people's achievements at certain kind of age milestones, don't you? And it's like, oh, this person has this at that age, but I don't, so I must be behind, or this person has this job and earns that much, so I need to achieve to that. But it's like, no, if you haven't moved out by the time you're any age, it doesn't matter. Like everyone's path is different, and you just, I don't know, like you will be a chartered accountant by the time you're in your early 30s, but that doesn't mean that if someone else isn't, then they're not going to be, that there's something wrong with that. It's I think that message is important.
I think that message is really important for adults.
Yeah.
It's not really that important for kids, because if you're a kid, you don't really give a shit. Like, kids do what this film's telling you to do. Kids just live. Like, kids just do whatever the fuck they like. If you're an adult, that's when you start getting obsessed, and, you know, you start getting into, like you just said, like, you get obsessed with milestones and being somewhere at a certain time in your life. And yeah, I think, I wonder if that was done intentionally, like, we need to send this message to adults, or if they thought we need to send this message to kids. Because I feel like kids don't heap too much pressure on themselves most of the time.
No, it's the
Yeah?
adults, isn't it?
Parents put pressure. Yeah, unless parents put pressure on them.
Yeah. I think maybe that's also like double-handed. It's sort of like telling parents, you don't have to have achieved this, but also don't pressure your kids, or, you know, believe in your kids' passions.
Mm. Yeah.
I would have liked to have seen more emphasis on the jazz, though.
I agree.
You know,
So you played what?
Massively long. They could have added a few more minutes of footage with, you know, focus on jazz, but
yeah.
I can't see this being franchise potential.
No, I don't think so. Also they got that Colombian one coming out soon. I don't know when.
Yeah.
So I feel like that'll be more like, I feel like more back in the Coco direction in terms of like upbeat, vibrant, that it will drag you into a magical world kind of thing.
Yeah, it's strange if you're doing a film about African American jazz, and there is very little jazz playing, and like you said, no original songs. I don't know. Yeah, it feels like a real missed opportunity.
Yeah, I agree.
Because you've had, you know, recently you had La La Land, which had like a jazz edge to it, but that was obviously featuring white actors. And